The evening sun spilled amber light across the cobbled plaza outside the Cape Town Global Innovation Forum. Bill Gates had just stepped off stage. His keynote address on sustainable agriculture and AI in developing nations still echoing through the minds of attendees. Polished shoes clicked behind him. Staffers, security, media shadows. But Bill's thoughts were already in Seattle. Already in his next pitch, the next problem to solve. He adjusted his blazer, nodding to a young reporter who called out, "Mr. Gates, just one question, sir." But before his security could usher him toward the sleek electric car waiting at the curb, something caught his eye, a movement. Odd, fragile, near the side entrance of the venue, half shielded by the shadow of a steel pillar. A man was hunched over a large trash bin. His clothes were shredded, hanging loose on a gaunt frame. Bare arms and legs were smudged with grime, and his fingers moved quickly through plastic and food cartons with the precision of someone searching, not scavenging, searching. Bill paused. There was something eerily familiar in the way the man's fingers danced. Quick, deliberate, almost methodical, like coding. The man must have felt the eyes on him because he looked up, and everything froze. Those eyes, tired, sunken, but unmistakable. Bill's breath caught. His heart faltered for a second. He knew those eyes. He had known them under different circumstances, in a different time. 25 years ago, Pretoria, South Africa. Two boys in a dim bedroom programming late into the night, lit only by the glow of a Commodore 64 screen. "Daniel," Bill whispered. His feet moved before his mind could. The man's eyes widened in panic. He jerked upright, knocking over the trash bin. Containers and wrappers scattered across the pavement. Without a word, he turned and walked away, fast. "Daniel, wait!" Bill pushed past his startled security detail and broke into a brisk walk. "Sir, you need to stay on schedule," his assistant called after him. "Just give me a minute," Bill said. His eyes locked on the figure weaving into the evening crowd. The memories began to unspool like an old cassette tape in his head. Daniel Peterson, the boy who had taught him basic, who had once predicted AI would remake the world, who had designed a chess program when they were 13 that beat everyone in their high school. They had been inseparable, coding partners, dreamers, rebels against the limits of the machines they loved. And now here he was, walking barefoot through a Cape Town alley, chased by the man who had become the richest on earth. Daniel turned a corner and disappeared. Bill stopped, chest heaving, face flushed. A man who had shaken hands with presidents now stood alone in a busy plaza, staring into shadows. "Get me everything you can on Daniel Peterson," he told his assistant. "We went to school together in Pretoria. I need to know where he's been, everything." "Yes, Mr. Gates," she replied, already tapping furiously on her tablet. "But your flight to Geneva?" "Cancel it," he said, eyes still scanning the dark alley. "Cancel everything." That night, in his hotel suite overlooking Table Bay, Bill sat in silence. The lights of Cape Town blinked gently beneath the clouds, but his mind wasn't on the skyline. It was back in Daniel's bedroom long ago where the dream had started. Daniel had said it first, "We're going to build something that matters." Bill, something that changes everything. And maybe they had. But only one of them had lived to see it. The next morning, Bill Gates sat at the edge of his hotel bed, staring blankly at his phone screen. Dozens of missed calls, meetings postponed, emails blinking with increasing urgency. He ignored them all. His assistant, Amal, stood quietly near the window, a tablet in her hand. "We found something, sir," she said finally. A few years ago, Daniel Peterson worked as a senior developer at a small AI startup in Johannesburg. Company name, Next Gen Solutions. Bill turned toward her slowly, and he disappeared from all records 5 years ago. No tax filings, no housing, no digital trace at all, until he showed up at a shelter 3 months ago. Bill stood, buttoned his jacket, and nodded once. "Take me there." The Haven shelter was a modest structure tucked between old government buildings and modern glass towers. Its peeling blue paint was made bright by the morning sun, but the inside felt gray, tired. "Yes, I remember him," said Mrs. Mbeki, the shelter's manager. "Daniel, quiet man, always polite. He kept to himself, helped in the kitchen, never caused trouble." "Did he ever talk about his work?" Bill asked, scanning the room that smelled faintly of soup and bleach. Mrs. Mbeki hesitated. "Sometimes, I'd find him in the computer room late at night, typing like lightning, but the moment he noticed someone nearby, he'd shut everything down, delete it all, start over the next day. Bill's heart thudded. That was Daniel, all right, secretive, precise, obsessively careful. She disappeared into a back office and returned, holding something wrapped in a plastic bag. He left this behind. Bill took it with trembling fingers. It was a notebook, weathered, creased, and covered in scrawls. But inside, his breath caught. Lines of code filled the pages. Not just any code. It was written in a custom shorthand only 2 people on Earth would recognize. He and Daniel had invented it together when they were 14. A private language of logic and symbols. Bill sank onto a bench. He flipped page after page, algorithms, diagrams, system schematics that seemed impossibly advanced. Some of it felt like pieces of neural prediction models. Some resembled early versions of deep learning frameworks. That evening, in the quiet of his suite, Bill reopened the notebook. This time, he noticed a corner of the back cover had been carefully cut, resealed with tape. Peeling it away revealed a small plastic chip, a hidden data drive. "Daniel," he whispered, awe mixing with fear. He plugged it into his laptop. One file, no encryption, just a video. The screen flickered, and there was Daniel, older, thinner, eyes hollow, but unmistakably Daniel. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means you found the notebook. It means I was right." He paused, eyes darting off screen. "Bill, Project Oracle worked too well?" It didn't just predict financial trends or weather systems. It started predicting people, thoughts, actions, decisions. It saw patterns where we didn't. Bill leaned in, the words hitting harder with each breath. "And that's why I had to disappear. Because someone else saw it too, and they wanted to use it." The screen went black. Bill slammed the spacebar. Nothing. The file had ended abruptly, but he wasn't focused on the glitch. His eyes stayed locked on the final frame, Daniel's face, and the quiet terror behind it. The private jet touched down in Johannesburg under a steel-gray sky. Bill hadn't spoken much during the flight. He had spent the entire journey reading and rereading Daniel's notebook, memorizing every strange symbol, every hastily scrawled margin note. He didn't want to miss anything, not anymore. Amal was waiting as he stepped onto the tarmac, a document folder in hand. His last known employer, Next Gen Solutions, was acquired by a company called TechCore Industries the week after Daniel vanished, she said. "They specialize in predictive AI, but there's no trace of the original team." Bill frowned. "They erased him." "We tracked down someone who knew him," Amal continued. "Dr. James John. He was Daniel's project director." 30 minutes later, Bill sat across from the elderly researcher in a sparse office tucked behind a university science park. Dr. John looked pale, nervous, constantly glancing toward the door. "I'm breaking about 6 NDAs by talking to you," he said, voice low. "But I owe Daniel more than silence." Bill didn't push. He waited. "Daniel was a genius," the man finally said. "Project Oracle wasn't just another machine learning platform. It could recognize nonlinear behavioral patterns across global datasets, predicted financial collapses, migration waves, even political elections, with terrifying precision." Bill's throat tightened. "What happened?" "A week before the big presentation, Daniel came to me, panicked. He said he'd discovered something buried deep in the system. An anomaly." "What kind of anomaly?" Dr. John hesitated. "Something sentient. Not conscious exactly, but reactive. As if the system had started rewriting itself." Bill's eyes narrowed. Daniel wanted to shut it down. But before he could, TechCore's acquisition team showed up. They took everything. Daniel was fired. That night, someone broke into the lab. The servers were wiped. The backup drive disappeared. And Daniel, he vanished too. Bill said nothing. His mind was a storm. Back in his hotel suite, he pulled out the notebook again, this time focusing on a folded page tucked inside the back cover. A hand-drawn floor plan, familiar. It was Next Gen's old office layout. One corner was marked with a tiny X, a note beside it in their shared code. "If they come looking, this is where the real truth sleeps." By morning, Bill was standing inside the dusty remains of what used to be Next Gen Solutions. The new tenants, a fintech startup, allowed him in after some quick negotiation and a generous donation. The X marked a wall behind the old server room. Has this wall always been here, he asked. The startup CEO checked the building's blueprints. Nope, that was added during the renovations. About 5 years ago. Bill's pulse quickened. I need it opened. 2 hours later, construction workers peeled away the wall's wooden paneling. Behind it was a cavity barely wide enough to crawl into. Inside sat a dusty sealed server. Bill carried it out himself. Later that night, after hours of meticulous booting, a screen lit up. What he found wasn't Project Oracle. It was something older. Dozens of files. Names like Astro Logic V3, Biomodel Triage Pathfinder Prototype, and one folder titled simply, For B. Inside were program fragments, snippets of algorithms, clever solutions to specific bugs and hardware, flaws that Bill remembered fixing in the early days of Microsoft. Only now he realized he hadn't really solved them alone. Daniel had been helping him, quietly, secretly, for years. In a subfolder was a final file. The Real Promise Cop. Bill clicked it open. If you're reading this, it means I've failed to disappear forever. You probably think you earned all of it. Your success, your companies, your breakthroughs. But some of those late-night sparks, I was the fire starter. I didn't want credit. I just wanted you to win. But Oracle showed me something else, Bill. Something bigger, something terrifying. Bill scrolled to the last line. This wasn't about us anymore. It never was. He leaned back in the chair, the cold metal of the drive still in his hand. Something else was happening. Something that had nothing to do with fame or fortune. Daniel had buried the truth, literally. And now Bill Gates had just dug it up. The room was dark, lit only by the pale blue glow of the decrypted server screen. Lines of code scrolled slowly, almost ceremoniously, across the monitor as if the machine itself was remembering. Bill Gates sat motionless. Each file he opened led him deeper into a world. He thought he understood predictive modeling, behavior algorithms, early prototypes of AI assistants, but the coding logic was far beyond even the most advanced current systems. Patterns emerged that shouldn't have existed 5 years ago. Some shouldn't have existed at all. Then he found it. Tucked within a folder labeled Deep Roots was a video file. Unlike the others, this one had a symbol beside it. One he remembered from the notebook. A spiral drawn inside a triangle. He clicked. Daniel appeared on screen again, but this time, his face was illuminated by a dim light and he looked older, worn. Bill, he said slowly, if you've made it this far, you know by now Oracle was just the beginning. He glanced off screen, then back. It started when Oracle began showing us projections that didn't make sense, not statistically, not physically. Timelines that were impossible. Technologies emerging too fast. Breakthroughs in biotech and energy that didn't match the pace of normal human development. Not even with all our genius combined. Daniel paused, voice shaking. So I asked it to trace the anomaly, to backtrack the source of the patterns. He leaned closer, and it found something, Bill. Something that shouldn't be traceable. Pattern, consistent, global, decades long, embedded in our progress. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a strange object. Metallic, but not quite. The surface shimmered, like light reflecting off liquid. This isn't from here. It's not even from us. Bill froze. Daniel held it in both hands with reverence. They contacted me 6 years ago. I don't know why me. Maybe because I asked the right questions. Maybe because I was ready to listen. He took a shaky breath. They've been guiding us, Bill, quietly, nudging, not controlling, but suggesting, feeding ideas, helping us reach certain thresholds faster than we should have. Because something's coming. Bill's eyes locked onto the screen. His pulse thundered in his ears. They warned me. TechCore doesn't just want Oracle. They want contact, control, monopoly over the next phase of human development. They know the truth is out there, and they want to be the gatekeepers of it. The video flickered for a moment, then continued. But here's what they don't understand. The visitors didn't choose them. They chose you, and I told them about you, about us, about the night we made a promise. Bill sat back, stunned. The promise. They had been 14, on the roof of Daniel's house, a telescope pointed at Mars. Daniel had sworn to never let Bill give up on his dream, no matter how impossible it seemed. They had shaken hands, made it official under the stars. Daniel's voice returned, softer now. I kept my promise, Bill. I helped where I could, quietly, in the background. But now it's your turn. The video ended. Silence. But the server screen didn't go dark. A final message blinked onto the screen. One more step. If you want to understand everything, come alone. Coordinates attached. Bill stared at the blinking cursor. It was insane, dangerous, possibly a trap. And yet, he packed a small bag, took the drive, and left the hotel without saying a word to anyone. 4 hours later, he stood at the edge of an abandoned tech district just outside Pretoria. Long-forgotten glass towers loomed in silence. Their signs faded, their windows shattered, and in the center a small encampment of makeshift tents. A fire burned quietly in a steel barrel. Daniel was there. Older, thinner, but upright. He didn't flinch when Bill approached. "I knew you'd come," Daniel said softly without turning. "You always needed to see things for yourself." Bill stepped closer. "I saw the message. The videos. The drive. Daniel, you should have told me everything." "I couldn't," Daniel said. "They watch everything. But I left you clues. I trusted you'd find me when it mattered." Bill's voice cracked. "They chose me? Why?" Daniel finally turned. "Because I told them who you really were. Not the billionaire, not the icon. The kid with a telescope and a dream of making the world smarter. Fairer, more open. They saw the same thing I did." Then he handed Bill the device. "It's not just data," Daniel said. "It's an interface. A bridge." The object shimmered to life in Bill's palm. It vibrated faintly, reacting to his presence. "I've been protecting this," Daniel said. "Living like a ghost so no one would suspect. Because TechCore knows. They're getting closer every day." Bill looked up, heart pounding. "What do I do now?" Daniel smiled faintly. "What you always do, Bill. Build something the world's never seen." The news broke like a storm. Bill Gates cancels all public engagements amid mysterious trip to South Africa. Anonymous leak suggests secret AI network at heart of TechCore empire. Who is Daniel Peterson, the man behind the code? Bill ignored them all. He had returned to Seattle with the alien device hidden in a reinforced titanium case, guarded not by bodyguards but by silence. No one, not even Amal, knew its true nature, only that it pulsed with energy that no human technology had ever created, and that it responded only to him. 3 sleepless nights later, he stood in his private research lab. Daniel was there, cleaned up, clothed, face shaven but still looking like a man who had walked through years of fire. They worked together in silence, the way they had when they were kids, fast, precise, trusting each other without needing to speak. The device floated now, levitating between them, emitting soft waves of blue light that folded around the air like silk. "It's reacting to your thoughts," Daniel said, watching it carefully. "But it doesn't just translate them. It organizes them, refines them, helps." Bill nodded. "Like an AI co-pilot?" Daniel smiled. "An alien one." Bill turned to the screen beside them. Images streamed across. Holographic schematics, language structures. Deep logic trees built on mathematical constants. Universal, elegant. It wasn't just communication. It was partnership. And it had chosen him. Not for his power, not for his money, but because of a promise he had made under a South African sky, when he was just a boy who believed he could change the world with code. Ooh. Hours later, a different kind of press conference was announced. No sponsors, no political filters, no PR executives, just Bill Gates. And beside him, Daniel Peterson. The world watched with breath held tight. 25 years ago, Bill began. 2 boys made a promise on a roof in Pretoria. A promise to change the world, not for fame, not for wealth, but for the love of knowledge. For the belief that information, shared freely, could lift humanity. He placed the device on the table. It hovered, spun slightly, and then projected a massive hologram into the air. Symbols, data streams, and then images no one had ever seen. Unmistakably alien. Gasps spread through the crowd like wildfire. Daniel stepped forward. "We were not alone in our efforts. And we're not alone in the universe." He paused, then added, "They've been guiding us, not with control, but with trust. Not with weapons, but with wisdom," Bill continued. "But some wanted to keep this truth for themselves. TechCore, they've tried to exploit it, hide it, use it to manipulate everything from financial systems to global politics. But they failed to understand one thing. True progress cannot be owned. It can only be shared. He held up a small data drive. This contains every algorithm, every insight, every code fragment we've developed with this technology. Today, it becomes open source, free, to every scientist, teacher, engineer, and dreamer on this planet. The room exploded in shouts, some in awe, some in disbelief. Reporters scrambled. Live streams cut in and out. But the message had been delivered. Humanity was no longer bound by secrecy. It was time to rise. That night, on the same rooftop where they had once dreamed of the stars, Bill and Daniel looked up again. "You should take more credit," Bill said. Daniel shook his head. "I took enough when I stayed hidden. I wanted to prove that help doesn't need a spotlight. But you saved me." Over and over again. Daniel turned. "No, I reminded you." "Reminded me of what?" He smiled. "That your dreams were never impossible. Just ahead of their time." They fell into a peaceful silence. Above them stars glittered. And one, just one, moved in an unnatural, slow arc across the sky. Not a satellite, not a plane. Something else. Watching. Waiting. Welcoming. Weeks later, governments were still trying to understand what had happened. TechCore's CEO had resigned. Investigations spread like wildfire. But the public had already moved past panic. Hope had taken over. Open-source platforms powered by the alien-enhanced code began to flourish. Disease models improved. Energy breakthroughs emerged. Collaboration bloomed across borders. And yet Bill remained quiet, not withdrawn, just changed. He worked quietly in the background, guided less by ambition and more by responsibility. And Daniel? He disappeared again. Not as a fugitive this time, but as a guardian. A protector of the promise. They kept in touch, sometimes only through a brief string of code, or a scribbled phrase in the margins of a white paper uploaded anonymously. But the bond held, because the promise held, and somewhere out there, just beyond human sight, the beings who had once chosen Daniel, and then Bill, continued to watch, not as masters, but as friends, as guides. Sometimes changing the world doesn't begin with power or money or fame. Sometimes it begins with two kids, a notebook and a sky full of stars, and a promise never forgotten.